Who are the Amish? How do the Amish preserve supplies for centuries without technology? It's simply incredible. In some American states, there are unique people who have found ways to preserve traditions and supplies without using modern technology. They prefer to travel by horse-drawn carriages instead of cars, grow their own food in gardens without visiting supermarkets, and reject many conveniences of civilization. These people are descendants of European migrants who adhere to specific religious teachings and follow strict life principles. The history of the Amish began with their ancestors who arrived in the USA in the 18th to 19th centuries. These people were supporters of a branch of Christianity that emerged in Switzerland at the end of the 17th century and was finally established under the leadership of, supposedly, a manna. The main distinction of this movement is that baptism occurs in adulthood, when a person consciously decides to become a believer. Since they faced persecution from the clergy in Europe, many of them emigrated to America, where they settled on new lands in search of religious freedom. In the USA and Canada, there were many Amish, but not all of them remained faithful to the old traditions. Some were tempted by the modern way of life, but many still consider themselves Amish despite adapting to the new reality. However, among them, there are those who continue to follow the traditions of their ancestors. These are the Old Order Amish. They represent the most strict and conservative group. How do the Amish live? Modern Mennonites in the USA still live in isolated communities, strictly adhering to their traditions and laws. Much of their daily life is regulated by the Ordnung, a system of rules and restrictions designed to uphold religious principles, and the preservation of a traditional way of life. In their settlements, you won't find modern conveniences such as mobile phones, televisions, or cars, as their use is prohibited. They avoid medical insurance and do not receive financial assistance from the government. They prefer to sew their own clothes or order them from neighbors, rather than buying them in stores. Women wear long dresses and bonnets, while men are expected to have beards. The life of the Amish is organized on the principles of subsistence farming. From a very young age, each family member learns to care for animals and work in the garden. Marriages are exclusively between Amish, and such families typically have many children. On average, 6 to 7. An interesting custom among the Amish is the so-called Rumspringa. When young people reach the age of 15 to 17, they are given the opportunity to live for a while in a big city to see the outside world and make an informed choice. This period represents a kind of time of freedom, when young Amish can experience things that are forbidden for adults in their community. At this moment, they can choose their path, and this choice should be independent, not imposed. Usually, only a small portion of the youth decides to stay in modern civilization, while the majority return to their community, undergo the rite of baptism, and officially become full-fledged members of the Amish. It's truly remarkable. Throughout their existence in the New World, from time to time, there arose religious disagreements, as a result of which individual communities began to follow their own rules of life. Some of them lead a less strict lifestyle, closer to modernity, despite the desire to preserve traditions. In some communities, tourists are welcomed, who can not only get acquainted with the unique way of life of these people but also purchase handmade items, such as interior decorations. Women are especially fond of patchwork crafts, and their quilts with distinctive patterns are in high demand. Life without modern technologies. In different Amish settlements across North America, the degree of acceptance of modern technologies varies significantly. In the most conservative communities, the use of refrigerators, bathtubs in homes, hay balers, and milking machines is prohibited. In less strict settlements, you can find kitchens and bathrooms equipped with modern appliances, synthetic finishing materials, as well as refrigerators and stoves that run on natural gas. Even among the Old Order Amish in some counties, the use of solar panels and solar thermal panels may be permitted. Some progressive Amish farmers also use feed additives, mineral fertilizers, insecticides, and practice artificial insemination of livestock. Nevertheless, televisions and video cameras remain strictly prohibited in all communities. Their life is characterized by simplicity. The houses, usually painted in light colors, have spacious rooms that are modestly and minimally furnished. Since they do not use electricity, lighting in the homes is provided by gas lamps, and the most devout followers of the religion prefer kerosene lamps. Since ancient times, they have used ingenious methods of preserving food, which were developed long before the advent of modern refrigerators. They store products in so-called cooling rooms, where, for example, milk cans are placed in dugout pits filled with icy water. Ice, harvested from local ponds and streams, is used as a sort of freezer. In Amish basements, in rare cases, products may be moved to a rented freezer in an urban area. Generally, the main place for storing food in the house is the cellar. The cellar. This method of food storage has stood the test of time. Cellars allow for the preservation of food in optimal conditions for a long time, regulating humidity, temperature, and light levels. They are widely used for storing fruits and vegetables during the winter period, as underground spaces help prevent rotting and keep food safe for consumption. Modern Amish cellars can be considered analogs of refrigerators that do not require electricity. The main thing is to ensure good ventilation so that air circulates freely and protects the products from spoiling quickly. It's not necessary to use old-fashioned cellars or separate buildings with dirt floors to create a cellar. For city dwellers, for example, in an apartment or condominium, there are several alternative ways to store products. A cool basement or attic can quite effectively replace a traditional cellar. You can also store potatoes, onions, squash, apples, and other products suitable for storage by burying them in the ground in the garden and carefully mulching on top. Storing products in sand. The method of storing root vegetables and fruits in sand, such as apples, has been used for many centuries. Sand helps prevent excess moisture, which can lead to the decomposition of products. It helps maintain the necessary humidity and extends the storage life. There are several ways to store products in sand. For example, you can use a bucket, filling it with a few inches of fine sand. On this layer, root vegetables such as carrots, rutabagas, turnips, and beets are placed, as well as firm fruits like pears and apples. After that, the products are covered with sand, so that there is space for air circulation between them. It is important to remember that vegetables intended for storage in sand should not be washed, as this accelerates their decomposition. Additionally, wooden crates or cardboard boxes can be used for storing products in sand. This method is suitable for use in cool places, such as a basement, shed, pantry, or cellar, as well as in a heated garage, provided that the temperature does not drop below freezing. Since the Amish practice natural farming, it is naturally necessary to first process part of the harvest so that it does not spoil, and then send it to storage. These methods allow food to remain fresh, flavorful, and safe to consume even during the coldest winter months. They are based on ancient traditions and are not only effective but also quite delicious. Canning is an important part of Amish life, as it is one of the simplest ways to preserve the harvest. For example, excess cucumbers or strawberries are canned in jars and stored in cool cellars. This way, in winter, they can enjoy fresh vegetables and fruits without losing any of what was grown in the summer. I have gathered the most basic methods of food processing that they use. Canning is one of the most popular and versatile methods of food preservation. The process involves packing food into jars or canning containers, followed by heat processing. For foods with high acid content, boiling water is used, while pressure processing is used for those with lower acidity. This is necessary to sterilize the food, to eliminate any remaining microorganisms and extend shelf life. Although the initial costs for canning equipment and jars can be high, they pay off with their long lifespan. To reduce expenses, you can choose high-quality jars that will last much longer and won't crack, unlike cheaper options. Reusable lids are also more economical and practical solution, as they can be reused, unlike disposable lids, which require constant expenses. Products prepared in this way can be consumed immediately. For example, if you have canned stewed beef, you can enjoy juicy meat the very next day after canning, easily piercing it with a fork. Salting and pickling. Salted or pickled products undergo fermentation or are placed in an acidic solution, which minimizes the growth of harmful bacteria and helps extend their shelf life, even after the expiration date. Salting and pickling are processes in which products are preserved in a solution with high acidity, achieved through natural fermentation or the addition of vinegar. The high level of acidity prevents the development of microorganisms. Salt and vinegar are often used for this purpose. Pickling with vinegar prevents the fermentation of vegetables, as they are immersed in brine for a period of time. The acid contained in vinegar raises the acidity of the vegetables to such a degree that microorganisms cannot survive in this environment. The salting method involves adding a large amount of dry salt to the vegetables, which causes them to release juice, creating a brine. This brine covers the products, initiating the fermentation process. During fermentation, the natural bacteria present in the products convert sugars into lactic acid, which acts as a natural preservative. One of the advantages of salting and pickling is the variety of products that can be preserved this way, including meat, vegetables, and fruits. Jams and preserves. This process involves making a fruit syrup or a jelly-like mass from the pulp of the fruits. Sugar plays a key role in preserving fruits, and it can be easily used for home canning. To make jam, the first step is to thoroughly clean the fruits, after which they are crushed to achieve a thick consistency. If the fruits contain fibers, they can be removed through filtration. Heating the resulting mixture helps reduce the moisture content in the fruits and also destroys harmful bacteria. To prevent their growth, sugar and citric acid are added as a preservative. Some fruits, such as apples and plums, contain a lot of pectin, which helps form a jelly-like texture. If you are making jam from fruits with a low pectin level, such as strawberries or cherries, you can add fruits with a high content of pectin to improve the consistency. The process of cooking jam pasteurizes the fruits, concentrating the sugar and reducing water activity. This helps significantly extend the shelf life of the product without the need for strong preservatives. Fermentation. An ancient method of preserving food is based on a natural process in which microorganisms, such as yeast and bacteria, transform sugars and starches into acids or alcohols. This process is similar to canning, but does not require completely sealing the products. However, fermentation allows the penetration of beneficial microorganisms, while using a brine with high acidity. Such a brine promotes rapid fermentation and prevents the growth of harmful bacteria. Popular products for fermentation include yogurt, sauerkraut, and cheese. This method can also be used for preserving vegetables and fruits, allowing them to be used during times when fresh produce is scarce. The alcohols and acids formed during the process act as natural preservatives and give the products a special tanginess and rich flavor. In addition, fermentation stimulates the growth of probiotic bacteria, which positively affect digestion, strengthen the immune system, and support heart health. Thus, this process not only extends the shelf life of products but also contributes to overall health improvement. In winemaking, fruits like grapes often acquire a purple hue, which complicates their long-term storage. However, there are several ways to prevent their spoilage. One of the most popular methods is winemaking, which allows delicious grapes to be preserved for many years. After the harvest is collected, it is important to thoroughly wash the grapes and process them into must. It is necessary to separate it from the clusters and squeeze out the juice. Then leave the must for a while to start fermenting. Usually, this process lasts from 6 to 12 hours. To speed up the process, a small amount of yeast can be added. Fermentation continues until all the sugar in the must is converted into alcohol. If the finished wine is stored in a cool place, it will keep for many years. Drying. Drying is one of the simplest and least labor-intensive methods of preserving food. This method reduces the moisture level in food, making it lighter and more convenient to store. Drying can be combined with other preservation methods, such as freezing or pickling. The drying process is not only simple and safe, but also helps preserve the taste and nutritional value of foods, since the only thing lost is moisture. Dried foods are an excellent source of quick energy. Most bacteria and mold require moisture to grow. Drying slows down enzyme activity without completely destroying them and removes water from foods such as fruits, vegetables, and meat. This helps significantly increase shelf life and prevent them from spoiling quickly. There are several methods of drying foods, but the most common is using the natural elements of sun and wind. All you need to do is prepare the foods and leave them in the sun to dry naturally. The optimal time for this is a warm and dry day when the sun shines all day long. Curing. Salt is a traditional means of preserving food, used for many years. It prevents the growth of bacteria and helps soften vegetables, giving them a distinctive texture. Curing is a method of preserving food that effectively prevents spoilage. Since most microorganisms do not survive in an environment with a salt concentration above 10%, this method is especially suitable for meat. The curing method can be applied to fish or meat through smoking, salting, or using a brine in which the products are soaked. Salting is the simplest and most accessible method of curing foods, especially those that spoil quickly and contain a lot of protein. This process allows for significantly extending the shelf life of meat from its collection to consumption. For this, you need to rub the meat with salt and place it in an airtight container where it will be stored at a low temperature. Salt does not destroy all bacteria, but it limits their activity, creating conditions for moderate fermentation, which makes the products more flavorful. As a result, the meat becomes more tender because the salt breaks down the proteins in the muscle tissues. Brining. This method is similar to curing, but it differs in that it involves soaking the meat in a solution of salt and water, which is reminiscent of marinating before cooking. If you recall physics, diffusion occurs in the brine, where salt penetrates the meat fibers. The salt solution has a higher density than the water contained in the product, and because of this, the product absorbs salt and moisture, giving it a salty taste. Processing of meat and fish products. And poultry in brine allows them to be stored for a long time and also enriches the flavor. However, this method has one downside. Before cooking the meat over a fire, it needs to be soaked in clean water to remove excess salt and make it more palatable. Olive oil. A long time ago, even before modern preservation methods were used, a way was found to store products like vegetables, fish, meat, and cheese by immersing them in olive oil. This oil has excellent antiseptic properties, which help disinfect the products and extend their shelf life. Olive oil serves as a natural preservative, creating a protective film that prevents air from entering and thus slows down the process of spoilage. This method of storage preserves the taste and beneficial qualities of the products for a long time. Smoking. Smoking, yes, it's an ancient method of food preservation that has been used since the earliest times. This method does not require electricity and remains popular to this day due to its effectiveness and simplicity. For this process, you need enough space outdoors and special equipment. A smokehouse, which will help you preserve meat in large quantities. In the smoking process, the meat can be flavored by rubbing it with a mixture of salt, spices, and pepper. The wood used for smoking also imparts a special flavor to the meat. It's important to prepare the meat to a state resembling jerky so that it doesn't lose its flavor and remains safe to eat. The main goal of smoking is to remove as much moisture as possible, as excess moisture promotes the growth of bacteria that cause food spoilage. The drying and antibacterial properties of smoke allow for significantly extending the shelf life of products, making the smoking process not only practical but also an effective method of preserving food for a long time. Cheese making. If you need to preserve milk for a long time, is one of the best methods. This process turns milk into cheese, which is significantly different from the original product but has unique taste qualities. Cheese production is a lengthy and complex process that involves the use of enzymes, bacteria, and natural acids, which help transform milk proteins and fats into a solid form. One of the most important stages is the addition of lactic acid bacteria, which convert lactose, the milk sugar, into lactic acid. This aids in the formation of curds, while enzymes help transform milk proteins into casein, which is the foundation of cheese. Casein contains calcium and fats, which give cheese its nutritional value. The cheese-making process helps separate water from the milk, which can cause spoilage. Thus, nutrients, proteins, calcium, fats, and others are preserved in the final product. As a result, cheese can be stored for several months or even years, retaining its taste and nutritional properties. As you can see, many of the food preservation methods used by the Mennonites can be applied by anyone. And by the way, in the United States, products made by members of this community are sold at a high price, but they are in great demand because the quality is top-notch.